I pick photos for Instagram because I know they're a quick see. And I think when I started out, I felt my photos were too structured, and this might be my very German side coming through.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I will go home and make these discoveries that I did not see. Like the idea of having 2D and 3D in a photograph, you just never know the right time, the right publisher. You kind of have to just keep going. I mean, I think they're proud of what I do, but it's still kind of like, oh my God, my mom is like, she's a little crazy. Like, what is she doing with these strangers? Like, I don't want anything to do with this. I mean, over time, I learned that, you know what, it's good enough. It's perfect enough.
Guess I have to experience that myself someday. Can't relate. Yeah, hi everyone, Samuel here, welcome back to another video. And today we have a special guest here all the way from New York, here in Hamburg in my hometown, Nina Welch-Kling. Yeah, thank you for being here.
No, thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure, honor to be in Hamburg, and thanks for asking me to talk to you.
Of course. So Nina and I, we know each other through social media a little bit. I remember when I found you, I was really impressed by your eye, and you were doing things a little bit differently than what I'm used to seeing, especially in New York, for example. And your background is also interesting to me because you are German, right? You're born and raised in Germany, and then you moved to the US to study.
Yes, so I lived in Chicago for 5 years. It was a bachelor program, and at the School of the Art Institute, which is a wonderful fine arts institution. And then, but I specialized in interior design. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I wanted to get an architecture degree, and then I went to UCLA. So I lived in LA for 4 or 5 years after that. So yes, my background is not in photography.
Yeah, but something within the arts. So
definitely. Yes.
How did you then discover photography for yourself, and then especially street photography?
I always loved photography. So even while I was in undergrad, I took a photography class. It was in the dark room, and I loved being in the dark room. I love quiet space, and I need a lot of quiet time, which makes no sense living in New York, but that's a very different story. But then for some reason, I did not pick up a camera for many, many years. Mm. And then I think about 10 years ago, after I raised my kids, and a friend of mine had bought her first digital camera, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get a camera. And I just fell in love with it. I've done watercolors, I've done painting, I've done everything but photography. And once I picked up a camera, I got obsessed. To learn, to go to school, to take online classes, and I couldn't stop. It just really became part of my life. I took some class at ICP, that's International Center for Photography in New York. It's continuing education for photographers, and they offer great classes. So, I mean, this is where I met Jeff Mermelstein. I met a lot of very inspiring photographers, and it was, I think, Natan Dvir was one of my teachers. He's an Israeli street photographer. Mm-hmm. And somehow it ignited in me, wow, street photography is something that I really love. It's kind of readily available. I could just go outside. I mean, I hate to say I'm a lazy photographer because I don't like to take a lot of equipment, but the fact that I could just go out on the street, I had 20 minutes, had an hour, I could just go out and there was so much to see. Mm.
Yeah,
but then,
not
of course,
a bad place to start.
Not a bad place to start, but also I felt that going outside, because there's such a variety of people and there's so many different places in the city, it never stopped giving me resources to kind of go shoot.
Yeah, I don't feel the same about my city. I wish there were more resources now. I think it's a matter of perspective. Why don't we talk a little bit about your book? It's your first photography project, I assume? The first one you published?
This is my very first, and it was my dream to have a book published. I think we all, like when we're kind of this mid-level photographers, you know, you've had some successes, but you know, it's like, what's next? So my goal was, you know, a book would be amazing. But a book in street photography is complicated because usually publishers, I think, look for a series and look for a kind of common thread throughout a story. So in street photography, because it's these individual shots or these individual moments, unless it's, you know, your famous street, or if you're Joel Meyerowitz, I think, you know, each one is a famous photo. So then it's kind of your body of work and you're famous. And then each one, it's fine to be these individual photos. And even he has done a lot of series, actually.
Yeah.
I had taken so many street photos, and somehow in a class projects, I still take classes and I still work with a mentor. And I always say that it's really important to keep working with people that you trust and that can give you the hard and honest opinion that really helps you grow.
Don't ask your friends.
You know what, your friends will say, oh, it's really nice, but that's not helpful in terms of your project. And so he was amazing. He would always, his name is Christopher Giglio, and he is a teacher at ICP, but I've been in a group class, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years. So we still meet once a week. You can present your work. He gives lectures on different photographers. We do history of photography. Because I don't have a formal photography education, I always feel like I need to know more in order to understand and evaluate what goes on. And so it was a class assignment. He said we're supposed to do a diptych.
Oh, okay, that's where it comes from then.
So then I went and looked at my work, and the next week I came in with diptychs because I felt like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can take these photos that I have taken at different times during my wanderings, and I can create this other story. And all of a sudden, it becomes this otherness, and I could combine all these pieces that might not have made sense by themselves. I mean, they make sense, but there was no consistent. I mean, there was a consistent eye to my work, I think, but not a consistent story. And so I think for 2 or 3 years, I created these pairs. And I loved creating them. I liken it to playing a memory game, because it was kind of, I had these photos in my head and in a collection, but there's so many of them, so that when I picked one that I felt, wow, you know what, this is a strong photo, I'd like to find a partner to it.
And then you go out and search for it?
No, I look in my archive. I would never go out and find another photo.
Now after you've done your book, no?
Because still I'm a street photographer at heart that kind of goes out and shoots, you know, what's in the moment. I can't really plan. And so, so they were all paired after the fact. And so it became this kind of crazy, in my head, conceptual play with the photos that is kind of insane. But somehow I really got a lot of joy out of creating this.
You mentioned yesterday, you told us how many photos you had to go through, 3,000, right?
It was probably more photos, but then I kind of narrowed them down, probably about 700 that were in the collection of photos that I would like to use. Or that could be usable. Okay. So that's a lot of photos.
Yeah. First of all, it's interesting to hear that you discovered that in your work that it is working. You can do these diptychs. But I thought that maybe you saw that potential, and then you went out to collect more images. But it's more of a retrospective.
Yes. It's more of a retrospective, introverted kind of work at home. Where I really, and even now, I like I see a photo and I'm thinking, let me see if I can kind of find a partner. And I was talking about this, always say this, it's like this odd marriage of 2 photos, because both of the photos must be photos that I feel strongly about. And then I will put them together, because I feel like if it's a weak photo, it kind of, it's not fair to the other photo to just kind of carry it. And then why would I want to have it published? Like, why would you have to look what I feel is a weak photo?
Yeah. I will actually flip through your book while you're talking, because I think it makes sense to show a little bit of it. Yeah, because a photo book in itself gives you that opportunity, right? This creative choice to pair photos. That's in itself always super interesting. And you basically made that aspect of a photo book the key concept. Were you always taking photos in a vertical orientation? Because this is perfect, of course, for this project, but you told me you took these photos before making the book or thinking about the book.
So I think I started taking a lot of vertical photos, but sometimes, I mean, in this book there might be a couple that were actually cropped to match the vertical aspect, but I think like these were all shot vertical. Like all these photos are vertically shot.
Yesterday you showed us these flipped the other way.
You're right.
I noticed these things.
But it was also like while designing the book, and I guess I started talking about how the book even started, was that I took it to a portfolio review. And, you know, I'm not sure how many people have done that, but I think that's kind of taking your baby and kind of showing it to the world. And I think it's a really hard step.
You mean the book was already sequenced?
It was the project, and it was the two were printed on one page. And then you present it to, you know, you pick if it's a publisher or a photo editor or museum curators, and you get feedback on it. And as I said, my goal was to have a book. So the first publisher hated it.
That's always the story you hear, that everyone hates it except this one publisher, and then it becomes successful.
But I think that the takeaway is that because one person really hates it, or it was not for him to be published. Yeah. I mean, I think he liked the work, but it wasn't something he was interested in publishing in, you know, whatever their books are that they're looking at. And he said he had already published a different street photography book, so he wasn't interested in this body of work. But then, you know, you go to the next, it's like, okay. And then she loved it, and she brought it to Kehrer, and it's Alexa Becker. She does independent curating now, and I think she's quite well known in Germany for her curating work. And so she brought it, and 5 days later, it's like, yeah, we'd love to publish it. And I was like, wait, what? Like, wait.
That was the second publisher you went to.
The second publisher, and it was like the first time I've really shown the body of work. Yeah.
I mean, German publishers probably love a strong concept.
I think there's love is strong. I think also because it's New York. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, so I think a European publisher might have been more interested in the New York story. But you just never know the right time, the right publisher. You kind of have to just keep going. Yeah. Because you never know. It was fun when we laid out the pages. People's like, why is there so much white? Like, you wasted books. Like, books.
That's actually something I just thought about before you said it. And because the images are more in the center together.
Right. And so I wanted it to read as the diptych, that they needed to be together. And I also wanted to give you, as a viewer, a little more space in the book to create this story in your head. And the white space, I mean, it is a luxury in a book for me to dedicate it to nothing.
Yeah, but it definitely adds a little bit to, maybe even more than a little bit, to the experience, because it makes you look into the center and consider these two as a whole.
Right, and I think once you kind of see it, you can kind of see both photos. You know, so there's like this visual between your eyes that it almost reads as one. Whereas if they're placed further apart, you know, you kind of have to go back and forth. And then also part of the sequence was, you know, how do you sequence this? How do I tell you my story of walking through New York? Yeah. Where there's funny moments, there is oddities, there is shadows and light. So throughout the book, the sequence kind of, it starts with the first one where it's easy to identify why the pair is connected. Mm-hmm. And then you think, oh, I get it. And then comes a pair where you're like, I don't get it at all. Yeah. But the point of that is that it's absolutely okay for you not to get it. And it's for you to decide, why did she put this together, and kind of make up your own story.
Yeah, you don't want it to be predictable.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, I remember you, little shout out to the Crit House. You came to this is a YouTube channel run by Jeff Larson. I recommend that. You actually went there to have your book critiqued, even though it was already published. So why would you want to do that? Just to learn a little bit more and hear more opinions?
I think because it's interesting to hear how other people view your work and your peers. And so even so it was published, you know, there's maybe a favorite pair, or I think there's always a learning, you know, there's always a point where you can learn something.
Yeah, can I ask you, is this a crop, or you went and thought, okay, let me take this part of the body?
It is actually not.
Or combination of both, maybe.
I think if I cropped it, it was minimal.
Okay, yeah.
I was talking to this woman at the beach, and I had I am very close often.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to remind myself to step back. But yes, this was very close.
Yeah.
The element of surprise is kind of something that I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
I've gotten very good in knowing what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to achieve. I mean, sometimes I will miss it.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, to your question, the vertical, I think part of it is the architectural buildings of being vertical. And that's kind of how I see the world. So it's kind of this up-down, especially in New York. And somehow for me, in how I lay out my frames, has always worked better for me to fill the frame in a vertical.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you why, but I think it's part of my architectural, very kind of structure. I mean, it could have been horizontal also, but somehow the architecture in the building, it's this vertical in my mind.
So you stuck to vertical for your entire
I
career
do
so far?
not even, very rarely will turn my camera. And so I kind of, like, I also, the way I hold it, it just sits in my hand like it belongs to my hand that way.
Yeah, okay. And always fixed 35 equivalent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know your framing without having to look through your camera, right?
I know, I mean, kind of. I think when I started out, I felt my photos were too structured, and this might be my very German side coming through.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe that's stereotyping Germans, but it was like this very kind of structured, and my buildings and you know, very centered, and I did not want, if there was pieces around the frame that would kind of interact with the frame, I would clone them out in the beginning. And then through my classes, I realized, you know what, these pieces actually make the frame. The kind of fragments that are part of it are actually the interesting part of my photograph. And so then I, you know, when I started with just kind of photographing with holding in my hand, I loved the idea that I could not control everything. And in the book, there's actually one photograph about a man that is holding a dollar bill in the pair. And when I took that photograph, I did not see that. And you know, when I would say, what is it about street photography that still interests you? I love the fact that I will go home and will make these discoveries that I did not see, that my eye at that moment was not aware of. In the end, it's all about making discoveries. So I think from these discoveries we learn, or I learn, because I will go out and I will see, wow, the light, there was something in the shadow I didn't see when I come home and look at my photos. But then I kind of make a mental note of it and say, so the next time, well, I need to look for that. And so every time you go out, you learn or you discover something that kind of becomes part of your structure or your language.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. You only have a finite amount of attention on the street. You can't see behind you, so yeah, there are all these details you often miss.
And then make it part of your language, and then use it. So then you have your kind of your vocab becomes bigger and bigger, and you become more aware. So yes, are things in the beginning, I think a lot of it is really random. But then the more you do it, I think the more specific it becomes, and the more you can plan for it. But in the end, it's still random things that always happen, which is the wonderful part.
Yeah. Sounds like a contradiction. To wanting to master the coincidences or chaos, or
But I think we're attracted to that as street photographers, because that's why we're going out, because we kind of want to get this order in this especially in New York.
Yeah. For example, this title photo, if you would post that photo and have two models doing the kissing, then you would not light this scene like that.
No.
But because it's lit that way, it makes it natural, and we know it's sunlight. So
it's also ambiguous. So a lot of my work is very ambiguous. Mm-hmm. So the ambiguity in my photos, I always feel like it's kind of this magic dust that you kind of have to look, and it's like, what is this, and who is this, and what is it about?
Okay, follow-up question. How do you take photos with that I can't pronounce that word. How do you say it? Ambiguity.
Oh, ambiguity.
Sorry, it's not a word I use often. Okay, so just as an example, how would you go and find that?
So the ambiguity is a very hard thing to kind of define. Yeah. But so what I do is, like, I will look at the lighting first, and then I'm kind of looking around. Is there a reflection, or is there a glass that when the sun hits it, that there is some kind of scratching? Mm-hmm. Is there something that kind of layers the photograph in more than just one way? Mm-hmm. Is there a shadow that, I looked, and I mentioned Ray Metzger last night, like the idea of having 2D and 3D in a photograph. Mm-hmm. So like this to me is almost 2-dimensional, and then this becomes 3-dimensional. So then you have these two parts in a photograph that they kind of play with your eye, because you don't quite understand why is this flat, and then why is the sun coming out. So I can't even say that I know exactly what I'm looking for, which would be really nice, because but somehow when I see it, I know it.
Okay, yeah, so you will see it and then because if it feels too flat or one-dimensional, you know it's not quite.
If you can immediately identify it, if you can see the face, like if I can look at the photograph and I immediately know what it is, you kind of lose my interest, or it loses interest for me. Yeah. So I will always try, and I'm thinking in the book, there is the photo with the balloons, or even this pair where you kind of know what it is. Mm-hmm. But also, if he would have just smoked the cigar in the summer, it would have been the smoke. Yeah. But it was on a winter day, and the sun was low, and it was just hitting the smoke in a different way. Yeah. So then to me it created this other level of magic that kind of, and maybe it's just me thinking that, nobody else.
No, but you often see smoke or right. Fog. Smoke, you see that in a more defined, simpler way.
Oh, here's the photo that I was talking about, with the dollar bill in. Yeah. So I was looking. So he, like, his hand was good, like his face was not visible, the woman behind.
And the dollar bill makes this pair so much stronger. Yeah.
But so if you just look at this photo, it's a very different story. But if you see these two stories, your head goes somewhere totally different.
Yeah. And you can make up multiple stories here.
And if I would tell you the real story, then you'd be like, wait, what? Yeah. And then I tend to follow people for a long time. Like these nuns, I actually followed for 15, 20 minutes, because I just needed the light to be right on their habit, I guess it's called. Yeah, so I will stalk them for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm relentless.
Okay.
So, like same here, like there's a reflection, there's the cross. I also like religious symbols quite a bit. And then, you have the kind of crossing. It also creates this square.
Yeah.
So within each of these pairs, there is usually visual clues that connects them. Secret. So, the more time you spend with it, or, here's negative, positive space.
Yes, yeah, okay.
You don't see either one of them, but one is clouded in white and one is clouded in shadow.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of yin yang often. So there's a lot of different ways that you can connect these photographs in many different ways.
Yeah.
Like this one where I was talking about, I'm very influenced by movies and Hitchcock movies and kind of the beginning entry scene to a movie. And to me, that's kind of a movie scene.
Yeah.
And so, it would have been fine to have this photo by itself. But then this becomes another story.
Yeah, I like this little shadow creeping in.
The dog tail.
Almost seems like it's coming from this side. So something dark is coming. Let me add one more question to your Duologues project. Have you learned anything surprising in the process of making the book about your work, or something you now take away and bring with you when you take photos?
For the book in general is that the parts that I nitpicked over, whether it was like the sequencing of the pairs, it was something that I lost sleepless nights over and thinking, is this the right thing? You kind of forget that people will never see it that way. But to me, all of these little things, and then there are things that you want to change even when you're done, but then at some point it's done. Yeah. And you kind of have to let it go. And I think initially it was almost like you gave birth to your book, and then there were things where it was really hard to even get excited about. It was almost like postpartum depression. Okay. Because it was like, oh my God, this is all perfect. I mean, over time I learned that, it's good enough. It's perfect enough.
Guess I have to experience that myself someday. Can't relate.
Please, and then please email me and text me. It's like, damn, I know exactly what you feel like.
I want to do a little bit of a deep dive in what it means for you to do street photography. Do you have I don't want to ask you for a definition because everyone has their own thinking of it, but what does it actually mean for you to be out on the street?
It's a love for, I think it's meditational. I think that's like my number one. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm actually very noise sensitive, and I actually hate a lot of noise and commotion around me. So it is always interesting to me that if I go photograph at Times Square, because I cannot think of a place where there is more people. I mean, I think in Japan there's the one crossing where the insanity of people, noise, actors, whatever there is, when I am out with my camera, I don't hear it. Mm-hmm. It's about the only time where I can walk through New York where any kind of commotion does not bother me. So it is this total focus on what I'm seeing and forgetting what's around me. So
street photography is your noise cancelling.
Yeah, and the noise cancelling earphones.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you have an end goal with your photography? It sounds a little strange, maybe, but
hopefully there never is an end goal.
Great answer. Yeah, great.
Hopefully
answer.
I can photograph and find new projects. I mean, I'm working on a different project right now, which is very different. It's in color. It's not sharp. If you want to go to my website and check it out, it's very different. But then I have 2 other series I'm working on. So I always kind of like to have another project that I can get excited about.
Okay. Good mission to have. So
keep shooting.
Keep shooting. What do you? So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on social media as a photographer? I mean, you obviously use it. That's how we also connected. How do you look at it? Is it a tool for you?
I think it's a love-hate relationship, and I think we all have it. I think you only have 24 hours a day, so you kind of have to decide where do you want to spend this time. And so I think I went through phases where I really posted regularly, and it becomes part of, I think, the job. You know, if you see yourself as a professional photography, I see it as part of what has to be done. But I have truly, it's been good to me and for me, because I connect with people all over the world, and I've written to people, and the connections I've made have been wonderful. So yes, it's annoying, and do we hate it when we don't get likes on our photos? Yes, but I kind of have learned to just use it and see it for the good of it. And I think there's a lot. And I think especially during COVID, I think the connections that everybody via Zoom, and we all of a sudden, were able to talk to each other. Yeah. And keep motivated. If you see something that you like, you follow somebody, you connect with them. I connect with people. I say, wow, I love this photo.
Yeah, and you can offer and get feedback through social media as well. So it's a great tool if you don't get too addicted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be a time kill. It really, you can totally get.
But your photos would probably work well.
They do work well
because they're vertical.
But I do pick. I pick photos for Instagram because I know they're a quick see.
Yeah.
The black and white contrasty photos will do better.
Yeah. So you intentionally use photos that will
grab attention, are easy to see in a split second.
And you don't bother with the other work that works better on a
which is maybe a photo that I think is a better photo.
So you don't overshare. That's probably your.
Yes, and I share where I feel that it's visible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a little personal question, because I'm in a situation where you have 2 daughters, right?
Yeah.
And they're already teenagers, grown up, or
23 and 25.
Okay. Have you ever struggled with balancing being a parent and your artistic side?
All the time. I mean, I'm a mom first, and I think when you kind of are home with with the children, to make time for your own art and to demand this for yourself, I think is very, very hard. Because it's also an art, so it's not where I'm saying, I'm going to work now, and I'm going into the office. So I think I've gotten better with it, and I think also my family understands more that it's serious and important to me, I would say. But I think it's very hard. And I mean, I always say that when you go on family vacation, I mean, it's an oxymoron anyway, but sorry to my family. But I kind of know that there will be very little time for me to take the photos I want to take. Yeah. And so I have made that conscious choice to say, if I am traveling with my family, this is what we're doing, and I will have my camera with me, but it's not going to be why I'm there. Yeah. But what I will do is I will take an hour in the morning and get up earlier, or I will in the afternoon when they go back to the hotel, I say, I would like to have an hour. I'm going to go stay here, and I'm just going to photograph. So you kind of make that time, but it's never going to work when you have the kids running and you see something and they wait. I mean, it is just not a great situation. So to make that time and to demand that time, I think it's very challenging.
Mm. All right.
It's like, damn, it doesn't get easier. It does get easier, but it's still, you have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, like you said, forcing yourself to make work while you're with your family is impossible.
Right. Because you're not going to do the family vacation right, and you're not going to take your own photos right.
Yeah.
So neither one is going to be great.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're going to have a great photo if you're going to go out, but at least you give yourself that opportunity.
Has your family or your children, did they influence you in some way and how
Yeah,
you work?
never to do portraits of children.
Of your children or children
Any
in general?
children? No, I
So
do
your
children but
Your
my
daughters
kids
don't like that, or?
no, they never did. And when I take their photos, it's never right, you know, because they're like, oh, let me see.
Okay.
Once in a while. But no, you know, I mean, in street photography is such a novelty, I think, sometimes that,
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're proud of what I do, but it's still kind of like, oh my God, my mom
What is she
is
doing?
like, she's a little crazy. Like, what is she doing with these strangers? Like, I don't want anything to do with this.
I see. Okay, so they don't quite get it, but
They do get it,
yeah.
but they kind of step back. They let me kind of do my thing, and then they're like, okay, mom has to do this. She's, you know, it's her thing.
Okay. I was wondering, how does a week for you look like? You work. What is your? You're not making full-time living just for street photography, I assume. It's like
Now I am.
only
yeah.
few people. Really, you're doing only photography at the moment? That's cool.
Well, but part of the photography, which is interesting now, it's like once you have a book and once it becomes this business aspect of it, there's so much bureaucracy that has to be taken care of. Because, you know, we all do our own shipping, handling, marketing, because you upfront had to pay for your book. You know, I wish it would have been taken, you know, paid by someone else, but you have to self-finance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other things so now I'm trying to write grants, and I'm not a good writer, and that for me is really torturous. Or, you know, when you start applying for things to make this financially feasible,
Yeah.
there is so much else to be done. And when I go out and get to take photos, I'm actually really happy.
Yeah. So you have to do a lot of work around your work.
You have to do a lot of
But
work.
the actual work then comes second. Or,
Right, which is terrible because you think the work comes first.
yeah.
And then it kind of goes by itself. But unfortunately, that magic has never happened for me.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to work on meeting people or work on sending emails and connecting with people and trying to get your work out there. And it's not an easy, because there's so much good work.
Right, right. Are you doing workshops or in New York? Is that something you do?
You know what, not yet, but I've been asked if, you know, I will. So I think that's going to be something I am planning for or will do. What I do, I work with women street photographers in New York. Gulnara is a friend of mine, and right now we're planning another weekend, which is usually like a sponsored to have speakers and a big exhibition, just like we did here. And so I'm involved in a lot of different groups, and I really enjoy that part too.
Okay, sounds good. I guess that is it from my side. Do you have anything going on right now you want to mention?
What do I have right now? Well, I have actually in Schweinfurt in May, I have a show coming up. So I feel it's quite lovely in the town that I grew up in a gallery, which is really
about your Duologues?
Yeah, it's about my duologue and my other work. So it's really like my first solo show.
Yeah. So everyone,
yes,
visit Schweinfurt.
Come to Schweinfurt. It's going to be on my Instagram. So that's very exciting, and that's also a lot of work because you kind of have to curate your work and figure that out.
Yeah.
So yes, so that's very exciting, and so we'll see what else the year brings.
Cool.
And your interview.
Yeah. Whenever that comes out.
Whenever that comes out.
Yeah. No, but yeah. Thanks for taking your
you.
time. That was great.
Thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And I love being in Hamburg, so it was nice.
You're always welcome to come back. So, yeah. Then I guess I will put links to all of your to your website and Instagram and wherever people can find you.
Great.
And your book is still available? I
Yep.
saw it on Amazon.
Yes, it's still available on Amazon. You can also get signed copies through my website, and I'm always happy to send out signed copies. So, yes, please buy books.
Do it. Okay. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you so much. And I think I'm very approachable. So even when people kind of look at me, it's like, why are you taking my photo? That I can de-escalate a situation quite easily. I don't find it so different, but maybe because I'm a little ignorant, so I just kind of go out in Germany and pretend I'm in New York and just do it.